Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. As promised, we have Belle Fraser on with us right now. For those of you who are not familiar with the name, like I said at the beginning of the show, get used to it because she's going to be one of your main Bruins representatives. Officially, the title, I believe, Belle, is Multimedia Producer, but you were a writer for the Hockey Writers. That's when I got to know you. Did a little bit of work with Utah, and now you're permanently with the Boston Bruins, covering the team in what aspect? Let the fans, first of all, thank you for being on, but let the fans know how they're going to be getting to know you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here with you guys and back in Boston. Yeah, like you said, I'm the multimedia producer, so I'm kind of the team reporter internally. So all the stories you see on the Bruins websites and features and game notes will be me. I'm also on social media giving practice updates and everything Bruins fans need to know. And then we are really excited about Behind the B this year. I'm helping field produce that. It's more access than ever before. We're really excited to give kind of the behind the scenes look that Bruins fans love to see with that show, but elevate it a little bit. We have sit down interviews and more storylines. So doing a lot with that. And then it's in the title, kind of just multimedia content at games, before games. We do the B60 and key takeaways and kind of just keeping Bruins fans informed and excited for the season on all platforms.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Behind the B stuff in a little bit because the show, it's Emmy Award winning. It's been great. It's been on for a number of years, but it is a little bit different this year. And as you alluded to, it's going to be a little bit more in depth with player stories. So that'll be a lot of fun. In terms of, what you've experienced so far at training camp, how are things going for you? What have you observed? How are things going, with the new role?
It's been great. I've hit the ground running, which I actually prefer. I got here when training camp started, and I think you can feel it around the rink. You guys have been here for the past few weeks. The players feel really excited, and there's a good energy about this season. And I think that just makes everyone else want to work harder and want to promote the product. No complaints. I think all of us are so lucky that we get to go to Warrior Ice Arena or TD Garden as our office every day. So it's been a blast, and I just can't wait for opening night and for things to really get going. And you can see this week, it looks like the final roster is getting closer and closer. So Bruins fans, the wait is almost over. It feels like the season is finally really upon us.
Yeah, so what, you mentioned the energy. That's something that I always harp on too. Like, I'm a big vibes person, even though that's not always tangible. But I talk about that all the time. You can feel when the room is down or when there's tension versus when there's excitement and opportunity. And they're definitely leaning into the excitement and opportunity part. But that being said, Adam and I, just before you logged on, we were talking about what the schedule of cuts might look like. And normally after a day off, the Bruins, which they had yesterday, the Bruins will make some cuts. But as Adam pointed out, there are still two groups skating instead of one. And Marco Sturm said in his post-game interview with Andy Brickley that he might field a younger roster with Washington. So it looks like they're, spending a little bit more time than in seasons before to figure that out. What do you know? What can you tell us? What are you hearing about that process?
That's been a big emphasis for Marco Sturm from the first day, mixing the veterans with the young players. And even if that doesn't mean that's going to be the opening night roster, I think it's all about getting those younger guys experience with players who have been in the league for a while. And, the first week of training camp, they mixed the locker rooms, which is something they hadn't done before. So it didn't matter which group the players were in. It wasn't young guys and older guys. It was a mix of both. So Nikita Zadorov said he really enjoyed that because he actually got to know players that he would have just seen on the ice and not really known their backstory. So I think that's been a really big part of it. And also, there's a lot of new faces, even some of the veterans like Victor Arvidsson, Sean Corrali, who everyone knows, but he's coming in a different stage of his career, are getting more comfortable and earning their voices in the locker room. So I think that's a big thing where it's just getting to know each other, and for Sturm to understand the players he has, not just in the NHL level, but in the AHL level as well. For him, it's getting to know all of these guys on and off the ice as well. So I think that has been an emphasis, is the team building, and also making sure that the players that need a little more rest are able to sit out of some exhibition games, and that they're able to give some of the bubble players a couple more games as well. So I think keeping both groups around has helped with both of those things.
Yeah, keeping the groups together in the dressing room. I actually asked Nikita Zadorov about how he was getting to know some of the new faces and some of the younger players. And before he revealed that they were keeping the groups together in dressing rooms. He had actually invited me to the next team party, the next team bonding party. I'm still waiting for that invite. I haven't gotten that invite yet.
I remember that. Yeah. Okay. Wait for it. Keep waiting.
Yeah. I don't think that invite is coming. I think he was just selling me something. But anyway, yeah. So obviously, everybody. I know you weren't here last year. You were out in Utah covering the Utah Hockey Club, which is now the Utah Mammoth. That's the first long road trip for the Bruins, by the way. You got Vegas, Colorado, and Utah. So you'll get to go and see your own old stomping grounds. But in terms of your new role and being around the team now and seeing some of the new faces for you, but also the big storyline last year in training camp, Belle, was the fact that it was so disjointed. You had all the injuries that guys were dealing with. You had the Jeremy Swayman contract situation. It was disjointed, and that was the word that they used. This year, that's not the case, and it seems like it's all systems go for the Bruins right now.
It definitely is. And I think it helps that even for the guys who have been in that locker room last year or here for years, everyone's learning a new system under Sturm. So it feels like a really big group effort where you can help them get used to the city and the culture of the Bruins, but everyone is almost starting from scratch right now. So I think that's a big thing. And then you mentioned, Jeremy Swayman has been here all of camp, and he had a good showing in his first preseason exhibition. Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm are back in the locker room, and those were two huge losses last year. And I think everyone's been feeling really positive about how they've shown in training camp. We did a feature story on Hampus Lindholm and talked to the training staff about everything they did to get him up to speed and ready to go. And, Bruins fans have watched it for themselves in the preseason exhibitions. He's come back extremely strong, and that was his goal, to have his knee better than it was before injury, not just to get back to where he was last season. So I think that just promotes confidence throughout the room when you have your guys like McAvoy, Swayman, Lindholm, David Pastrnak, who skated in his first preseason game and really drove that first line and got the power play clicking, although they didn't score. I think that just helps everyone in the room feel good about where they are heading into the season.
This is a bit of a non-technical question, but just so curious about how you decide what storylines you want to pursue, and do you hear little things in the scrums? Are you watching body language? Like, I like to watch the room, and sometimes it's the smallest thing that I'll pick up on. Yeah. I don't know if it's like a secret handshake or something a player has with someone. I'm making that up right now. But, you see that and then you're like, okay, let's see what's here. How do you decide? Because you were a writer and now you're doing this and you had some great stories. What leads you to them?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like you're saying, the secret handshakes and stuff that is a hockey story, but maybe isn't breaking down the X and O's on the ice. I was a hockey fan growing up, obviously, and that was my favorite type of content to read or to watch on video, was the more granular, like behind the scenes, who are these people as humans and not just hockey players. So I think that's a big part of my role and purpose. And what I love to do is help fans get to know the team kind of as an organization, as it relates to the community and who these people are with their families and with their friends. And so I think that's what I definitely look for. We just did a story on Jordan Harris, who signed with Boston this year, and he's a local guy, and it was kind of a dream come true for him. And he was a college hockey legend at Northeastern, captain of that team, 2 Beanpots Hockey East championships. So, maybe you don't know that when you're just watching him on an ice for an exhibition game, but there's so much more to his story that connects to Boston. So I think those are the things we're really trying to bring out and help fans kind of know more about the product that they see on the ice.
It's interesting that you mentioned Northeastern being a BU alum and all. I didn't think that you were actually going to, bring that up.
She's impartial. She's a good journalist, Adam. She's impartial.
Well, Jordan Harris scored the double OT goal in the Beanpot to beat BU, so
I know.
I've had to get over it.
I know. So you're talking about getting to know the players a little bit, and obviously there's some familiarity there, with you covering the team a couple of years ago. Who's been sort of the most interesting character you've come across in the room, and not necessarily character zany, but like just interesting personality, I guess you could say.
I think someone who's been impressive, who is a new face and none of us knew before, was Matej Blumel. He talked on the first day of training camp, and I think he was very clear with his intentions. He was in Dallas for 3 years and was a bubble player, but their forward depth was so deep that he stuck in the AHL for a while. And he said that he wanted to come to Boston because he felt like he could have a big opportunity here. And, he didn't really cut corners. He said, I've been working extremely hard in the off season. I know I can be a goal scorer. I know I can help on the power play. And he's been consistently in the top 6 in practices and in preseason games. And he's been on the second power play unit. So I think he's really trying to show coaching staff and management that he can be a responsible, consistent player in the NHL. And he also had a tie to David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha, all countrymen together. And he said that was a really big reason he wanted to be in Boston too, because those are players he's looked up to, and, they can speak the same language and kind of relate to one another. And he actually stayed with Pavel Zacha for a week in Boston when he first got here and got the tour of the city. So I think off the ice, Matej Blumel has just had, a welcoming personality. He's a guy that chose Boston and that wants to do his best for the team. And then on the ice, I think he has shown what he can be, being a hopefully top 6 goal scorer. And they're giving him the opportunity to prove that through week 3 of training camp. So I think that's definitely someone that maybe wasn't on the top of the radar heading into training camp, but has been an interesting storyline to follow.
He did his own dishes too, right?
Yeah, he did his
He
dishes.
did his dishes.
At Zacha's place. Yes, Zacha liked it. Also, I just want to follow up on that because he's someone that stood out to me as well. He seems very confident, but not cocky, right? There's just this, his English is excellent too, which obviously helps. It would be very intimidating to talk to the media if you were struggling with your English, but his English is excellent. He's very well spoken. I've noticed him on the ice when he's had his time. I hope, and what do I know, really? But I would love to see a bigger sample size in the regular season to see what that could do for him. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what all these guys talk about, because although the preseason might feel long to us when there's 6 games in training camp every day, it is a small sample size for them to prove themselves. So I think that's what every player in that locker room is battling for, is just to get a chance to be on the opening night roster. And then from there, earn your spot every single day. And that's what a lot of the players and Marco Sturm talks about. It's an everyday battle. It's not that this person is written into the lineup and that's that. And I think you've seen that, like we talked with the 2 groups here. They're really giving and room for players to prove themselves throughout camp. So I think Blumel falls under that category, and mostly everyone else on the roster up until this point.
Yeah, it's been such a competitive training camp, number of spots up for grabs, you would think, in the forward group. And one of those players is Mikey Eyssimont, who had an outstanding game against the Rangers, the 2 goals, the shorthanded goal, had an assist as well. And I thought his comments after the game were pretty interesting too, right? And you were there. Talking about the decision to join the Bruins in free agency. He wanted to go to a place where he wasn't going to have his wings clipped, which I thought was an interesting line from him, and he could just be himself. And so far, that's been the case.
Totally. And that was another storyline, and I think, Name, when you asked the previous question, that definitely comes up. And that Rangers game, he really just took over in the third period. 3 points in 20 minutes is obviously a lot for any game. And he did the qualifier like, oh, it's preseason, whatever. But I think that was a performance that Bruins fans can hopefully expect from Mikey Eyssimont, and especially the bottom 6 and 4th line identity. He's talked about it. Sean Corrali talked about it after last game against Philadelphia, that they want to come over the boards and be a really tough line to play against. They want the other team to be nervous when they're on the ice. They want to stick up for their teammates and be physical. But they both said they also really want to clinch games for the team. They want to come in and be able to score a gritty goal in front of the net and actually produce, and not just be, an enforcer line or something like that. And they want to be able to play against other teams' top lines if they need to. And that goes into the penalty kill too, which a lot of those guys kind of contribute to. So I think Mikey Eyssimont is kind of the classic Bruin in a way. He has that edge about him. But as we have seen, he has some real offense to him. And I think the fact that, kind of like Blumel, he came in here with a goal that he set for himself. He has a fire in his belly and he's ready to prove it. And he's been extremely consistent in training camp. So I think that's definitely another guy to look for, and hopefully will bolster the depth of the forward group for the Bruins.
I had to be careful. I said this on the show a couple weeks ago. Anytime you use a sentence or compare someone to Brad Marchand, you have to be careful, especially with this fan group. So I want to just like be clear again for anyone listening that this is not a direct comparison, but there were flashes, and it wasn't just the shorthanded goal, because we know Brad Marchand was the shorthanded king, short king. But it was just little flashes of what is definitely going to be missing by losing Brad Marchand, taking over a game. You know, Jack Edwards used to call him a dog on a bone with the puck, right? And there were elements of that. So again, I'm sure if Mikey was listening to this, he doesn't want me to downplay that, and he wants to be like, no, I could do that for you all the time. And if fans are listening, they're like, no one could be like Brad. So somewhere in the middle, I want to land, but someone needs to be able to bring that energy, take over a game, rally the team, dirty goals, all the things that you were just saying, or greasy, whatever word we want to use. And I just felt I saw flashes of that, and that made me feel, you know, confident that if he can bring that night in, night out, that's going to really help with the loss that the Bruins suffered in losing Brad.
Yeah, totally. And so much of it is away from the puck, too, I think, like when you talk about Marchand or what the Bruins need in their forward group right now. And that's been another point of emphasis, is having two-way players and dominating in all three zones, and quick transitions, quick breakouts, getting the puck and being in the other end in a matter of, you know, seconds. And was basically what the first week of training camp was all about. So I think Eyssimont really fits that mold of how Sturm wants the offense run, and that all starts in the D zone, you know, and I think he's really gotten that and shown it so far.
So many storylines this year, Belle. You know, it'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about special teams, penalty kill, and the power play. Let's stick with the power play. Have you had an opportunity to talk to Steve Spott? And if so, you know, what has he said? And if not, or, you know, I guess you can answer both questions. You know, what have been your observations about the power play? What have players said about, you know, how it's going so far under a new coach?
Yeah, we haven't gotten the chance to talk to him yet, but definitely want to pick his mind on the power play. And a lot of the players have just said they like that they're practicing it a lot more than they did last season, that they're getting reps, you know. Basically all of the second week was special teams. And then in the Philadelphia game, they had 3 power plays and they didn't capitalize on it. But Pastrnak said it was just really nice to be able to get some touches and make the changes in real time. And it's kind of the similar units that we saw last year, you know, McAvoy, Pastrnak, Zacha, Geekie, Elias Lindholm on the first unit. And then, like we said, Matej Blumel has gotten a chance on the second unit. Matt Poitras got a chance on the second unit last game with Hampus Lindholm, Arvidsson, and Casey Middlestat. And then Mason Lohrei has also been in that group. So I think they're testing chemistry, and it's really a big area of their game that they want to improve. That's what all the players have said, and that's what Marco Sturm has said as well, that he wants the power play to be firing by the start of the season. And obviously there will be growing pains and, you know, ups and downs, but I think that's something that the Bruins are really working on during training camp so that they can get that special team scoring that will help them put more games in the win column this season.
Yeah, something we talked about on our show is David Pastrnak's performance last year, and that's without, you know, the power play, 43 goals, 106, I think it was 106 or 103 points, one or the other, but without even, you know, special teams clicking. So can't wait for that to happen for him if it does.